I have been extremely reliably informed by the good peoples on TikTok.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
You got to love the scholastic work that's going on TikTok nowadays.
Yeah. From people who look like when they turn the record off of their phones,
right,
they're going to go kill themselves.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been informed by these very reliable people that Easter and basically all other related religious holidays originally started as pagan things.
Okay.
So, what say ye?
I would say that there is no evidence that that's actually true.
All right. Well.
Yeah. And so, for example, some people...
A lot of dead people told me it was.
For example, people will take like almost any Christian holiday and they'll say, well, Constantine created it, who was the emperor of Rome.
I thought he was a Christian.
Yeah. And yes. And that, he had a conversion, and then he basically took every pagan holiday and made it a Christian holiday. It's kind of a thought process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so there's no evidence of that. And so the idea of Easter...
Where's your evidence that there's no evidence?
All right. So let me discuss. So the fact that Easter is often assumed that it is derived from a pagan goddess. Okay. Named Istar or Easter. And who was celebrated as the goddess of the spring. Okay. And this is very specific to the Saxons of Northern Europe. Okay. So in other words, you don't find this tradition anywhere else.
Okay.
And so according to this theory, Istar or Easter was the goddess of the east. Okay, so where the sun rises.
Oh,
yeah. And so it's that she has a symbol of a rabbit.
All right,
which symbolized fertility. Okay,
in the form of eggs.
And then the eggs would be attached to that, right? And so therefore, the Easter bunny's pagan. The Easter eggs are pagan. The word Easter itself is pagan. The holiday is fully pagan. And we need to ditch the name, the eggs, the bunny, and just call it Resurrection Day.
And Jesus.
Yeah.
And get rid of Jesus.
No, keep Jesus.
Oh.
Yeah. You can keep Jesus. And Jesus rising, but it needs to be separated from this pagan stuff, presumably, of the word Easter, and of the rabbits, and of the eggs. Okay?
Okay.
So this is kind of like the myth, if you want to say that, the myth that's out there.
Of why Christians celebrate Easter.
Of why it's pagan in its origins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Of why Easter is pagan
so
in its
the idea
origins.
is that we grafted our Jesus stuff onto a pagan holiday and assumed it.
Correct. Okay. And then we, including the rabbit and the eggs.
All right.
Right?
So none of that's true.
None of that's true. Okay. So there is one source, only one, is from an 8th century monk, and who brings up this idea of this goddess named Istar or Easter. And so,
pretty similar.
Yeah, pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into the name in a second. Okay. But there's one goddess, or there's one source, this 8th century monk, and so he actually says that there is a month that has a name, which is now translated as Pascal month. Pascal is what we translate as Passover.
Oh,
okay.
But that is Jesus stuff.
Mm-hmm. So what he's saying is that there's a month called Easter, okay, and Easter, and that name is now being translated as Pascal month.
Okay.
Okay. Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So we have Easter, but now it's being referred to as the Jesus thing.
Okay.
So this is the Jesus group co-opting, what was former a pagan month. Okay.
Okay.
And which was once called after a goddess of theirs named Istar.
Okay.
Okay. In whose honor feasts were celebrated in that month.
Passover.
Mm-hmm. Or April. This
Last
is
Supper.
the month is April that he's referring to here.
Okay.
So the month of April is derived from Istar month or Paschal month, as he's referring to it here. And now they designate that Paschal season by her name, calling the joys of the new rite of the time-honored name of the old observance. And so what he's saying is, hey, there is this month called Istar, and I don't deny the fact that he's maybe right on this. Now, he's the only source we have on this.
Okay.
But I don't know why he would just necessarily make it up. And so there's probably a month called Istar or Easter, and that's what we now know as April.
Okay.
And that is when they celebrated the coming of spring or the spring equinox, and so they celebrated this spring. Okay, but there is no connection at all of there having anything to do with bunnies or eggs, or that there was even this worship of a pagan deity.
Okay.
Okay, and so I guess the kind of the movement would be, let's say there's a pagan goddess.
All right.
Okay. And that this goddess was became known as like the goddess of spring.
Mm-hmm.
They named a month after her.
Okay.
Which wouldn't be crazy.
Right.
All right. We name days of the week after gods, right? We have Thursday. And so that's named after Thor's day.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Why did we do that?
Because we took Norse mythology and we started taking the names of those gods and naming the days of the week of that. So remember, like you've seen the movie Thor.
Yeah.
His father.
Thor, the god of thunder?
Yeah, god of thunder, right?
Yeah.
And so you remember his
Odin?
Yeah.
All right.
And so that actually so that name is where we get an idea of Wednesday from. And so, yeah.
That doesn't track.
Yeah. And so there's this, in other words, we've taken, culture has always taken things and named it after certain aspects, especially in this day and time where you took deities and named it after deities. So for example, if I'm going to go do something on Thursday,
literally anything,
doesn't mean that I'm going to go worship Thor on that day.
Yeah, it does. Pagan.
Hey, that's all that I am. We're all pagans. We do things on Thursday. Or if I go to church on Thursday, I'm not going to worship Thor.
No one goes to church on Thursday.
We just talked about Maundy Thursday last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's to eat.
Yeah.
Thor ate. Pagan.
I'm just a pagan. We're all pagans. And so let's say there's this goddess. They've named a month after her. It coincided with the same time period of the resurrection of Jesus.
Okay.
Okay. And so Easter. That's where we have Easter from.
All right. So the eggs and the bunnies.
There is absolutely no connection
the Reese's
of
Pieces.
that at all. Right. Like the first time we really see the idea of eggs is the best that I know of.
Okay.
Is during the medieval times.
That's when they invented eggs?
No, so they invented eggs.
Oh.
That's just when eggs began to be used.
With Easter.
With Easter.
Okay.
Yeah, as like a celebration. So,
do eggs symbolize anything in the Jesus story?
No.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, like some people may refer to it as, again, the idea of new life and that kind of thing. But for me,
okay.
Like if we're going, like you have kids that are doing Easter egg hunts, for example, right? So they're doing Easter egg hunts, or you have the Easter bunny come to the house and bring candy to your kids.
Okay. Yeah.
Y'all done this, right? Maybe you didn't growing up. I don't know.
I didn't have fun. There was no fun.
Like, okay, so for me, it was like, every Easter you wake up that Sunday morning and you got a huge thing of candy.
Oh, like the giant baskets.
Yeah, the giant baskets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would say the Easter Bunny brought you the candy.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So none of that's pagan.
No, it's not pagan. It's just candy.
Okay,
for
so
kids. It's just fun, in other words.
It's just fun.
Now,
so what if it happens to be connected to pagan stuff?
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
what if that's true?
But there's nowhere. Now again, there's the connection between the name, of this possible deity.
No, what I'm saying is, what if the
eggs and the
bunny stuff only came from that story that you just read about the goddess?
But there's nothing here in the story that even talks about eggs and a bunny. And literally that's like what I read was it. Like, that's all you got until the 19th century.
Okay. So
although you got in terms of this idea of Easter and the pagan origins.
Why did all that get attached to Easter then?
Yeah. So, you remember there's an author, Grimm, like Grimm's Tales.
Yeah. The Brothers Grimm,
or the Grimm's Tales that were
what are they called?
I think it's Grimm's Tales, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't read.
Yeah, it's like
anything ever.
So this author, the 19th century.
He's
actually the one that made this connection.
Oh, okay.
Or made a full or blown connection between, or I won't say made a connection. He's the one that really created the myth that we buy into today that says all of this stuff is pagan, including the name. Well, again, we're using Thursday on our calendars. I don't think that makes us pagan worshipers for doing so.
Okay.
And so all I'm saying is the fact that there's nothing in any kind of primary source material that is making this obvious connection between a goddess and bunnies and eggs.
Okay, so on Halloween, all of the fun candy stuff, Christians, not all of them, but have more of a problem with all that candy stuff than Easter candy stuff.
Sure.
Or any other day's candy stuff. So what's the difference?
Yeah, I think for a lot of Christians is the fact that...
Is that 100% connected to something pagan?
Well, I think, so here's what I would say is that what I think a lot of Christians believe is that Halloween celebrates darkness.
Okay.
Whereas something like Easter Bunny and eggs is not celebrating anything of darkness. It's, so it's not, I'm not saying it's godly, but at the same time, I'm also not saying it's this sense of, darkness or death, which unfortunately Halloween, that's what's kind of gotten wrapped up into Halloween. And so I think for me...
Is Halloween the holiday originally pagan or evil?
No, I don't think so. I just think that's what it has developed into.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, like, for me as... And other groups have attached to that day as a day of, whether it's worshiping the dead or whether it is connected to other kind of witchcraft or sorcery or other pagan forms of worship. I think that day has been kind of hijacked, if you want to put it that way, by other groups that has made it as dark as it is. Because, like, the reality is like there's some families, like, their kids are dressing up like little princesses and pirates or something, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with that. And so, for like our church, so I'll put it like in our context, the way we handle that is we don't celebrate Halloween. We do have like a fall festival that's around that same period of time. And if kids want to come dressed up like princesses or farmers or pirates, or go for it, right? And then, like, at our church, just a couple Saturdays ago.
No Satan costumes?
Yeah, no Satan costumes.
Okay.
And so, or anything real gory.
Okay.
And so a couple Saturdays ago, we had an Easter egg hunt at the church.
Okay.
Completely cool with that.
I wasn't invited.
Yes, you were.
Okay, fine, I was.
Yeah. Because the whole church was. And so, but I think that's, so like that's how we handle those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what makes Halloween different from pagan Easter.
That's not actually worshiping any kind of pagan deity.
A little bit more eviler.
Yeah, it's not even. It has nothing to do with the worshiping of. And I think that's the thing with Easter. It has nothing to do with the worshiping of a pagan goddess.
But are there not some Christians who think that the eggs and the candy part of Easter shouldn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what's their reasoning?
Well, one, they either do think it is attached to pagan worship. Or two, they don't want it to take away or distract from the real reason.
Okay.
Right? Which would be the resurrection of Jesus.
Right.
So I guess they would have the same perspective then of Christmas, where they wouldn't want to have gifts or a Christmas tree.
Oh.
Because you would take away from Christ's birth.
Okay.
And so, and I bring that up because it is interesting because sometimes you have people they'll celebrate Easter stuff or not celebrate Easter stuff, but celebrate Christmas stuff.
Right.
And I'm always kind of like, well, what's the difference here?
Giving people stuff is pagan.
Yeah. And so, but I think that for me, it's more like a Romans 14 issue, which in Romans 14 basically says, hey, honor one another, respect one another in matters of conscience. And so, in other words, if someone's conscious, like if they're bothered, right, by Easter eggs, by the Easter bunny, then you don't have that person does not need to feel, condemned or put down. Let them have that belief. And if someone else believes it's completely okay, don't put that person down. Let them hold to that. In other words, what they're okay with in their own conscience. I mean,
do you treat Halloween the same way?
Yeah. In other words, I would never mandate. So as a pastor, I would never stand up in the pulpit and say, our church is taking this position.
Okay. About Halloween.
I am making this a mandatory thing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't celebrate Halloween. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I feel like if I was to celebrate Halloween, I'd be the evilest whatever I could be. Right?
Right.
Go all out.
I mean, go big or go home.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I get
it. Do it.
Right. And do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. And so, so that's how I think we probably should handle it as Christians instead of slinging mud at each other and that kind of thing for what they're doing or not doing. It's a matter of conscience. Let's just let people decide. I mean, the reality is Paul is talking about idol worship, like meat that's been sacrificed to idols, and how that's you can eat of it or not eat of it. That's up to you. If you want to, eat of it. If you don't want to, cool.
Mm-hmm.
He's dealing with that in 1 Corinthians 8, 9, and 10. And so, if Paul can say that about meat that's been sacrificed to idols, I think we can take that position about candy and eggs.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean,
I never heard that verse before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1 Corinthians 8, Paul's dealing specifically with meat that's been sacrificed to idols.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but you're not worshiping a god or a demon.
Yeah, you're just eating food.
Okay. But if your conscience is bothered by that, you don't have to. You don't you're cool, you're fine. Don't eat it. But if you're fine, go ahead and eat it. And so I think we need to have more of that perspective instead of instilling fear, that we're going to catch a demon or something if I go for an Easter egg hunt.
Well, no Easter for me. Because it's all evil, apparently.
I love what you take away from these conversations.